And the fact that it's found in the water, downriver, yeah, it's just strange. It's strange. So we're organizing a search for Jack and Lily Sullivan. We are relying on community members to come and join those efforts. We're going to offer like a little bit of shooting from the hip training on walking.
Stop scrolling. Moment ago, the RCMP confirmed new findings in the Lily and Jack disappearance. And what investigators uncovered changes everything. Because for the first time in months, the evidence points toward one possibility no one expected. Finding these children may still be possible. To understand why today's update matters, here's the expanded recap. Lily and Jack vanished in early May, and what makes their disappearance so difficult to make sense of is how little physical disturbance was ever found at the scene. No tracks, no dropped items, no signs of a struggle, no clear direction of travel. It was as if the environment itself gave nothing back to investigators. From the very first hours, search teams expected at least something: a footprint in softened soil, a piece of clothing snagged on brush, or even a trace on one of the nearby access paths. Instead, the area remained strangely unchanged, almost untouched, despite the urgency and intensity of the response. Over the following months, investigators pushed deeper into the surrounding forests and terrain. These weren't casual sweeps. These were structured, layered searches involving ground teams, creek-line teams, trail analysis units, and environmental specialists accustomed to reading subtle signs in nature. They mapped out every plausible route the children could have taken, from the most direct paths to obscure animal trails barely visible unless you knew where to look. Crews spent long hours combing through brush thick enough to snag clothing, tracking creek currents, and using grid pattern searches designed to catch even tiny overlooked details. Technology was brought in at full scale. Drones scanned from above, mapping heat signatures and environmental disruptions. Infrared searches were flown repeatedly, especially in early days when time mattered most. Specialized canine units covered wide areas, overlapping in multiple patterns to avoid gaps. Analysts reviewed the search maps daily to ensure every section of ground was accounted for. And through all of this, despite hundreds of officers, thousands of volunteer hours, and one of the most intensive rural searches in the region, one critical thing was never discovered: any confirmed evidence that the children were harmed. Not a definitive sign pointing toward injury, not a confirmed object indicating distress, not a verified marker suggesting the presence of immediate danger. It is this absence, this complete lack of harmful evidence, that is now reshaping the investigation. Instead of narrowing the focus to bleak assumptions, investigators are widening the scope again, re-examining everything with the understanding that the lack of such evidence changes what might still be possible. That single fact has become the pivot point driving the newest direction in the case. First, the RCMP confirmed that their most recent ground searches, including human remains detection dog teams, found nothing. And when investigators say nothing, they mean it in the most literal sense. These teams didn't just glance over the terrain. They covered targeted zones using trained handlers, detection dogs, and systematic grid-based patterns designed to pick up even small indicators. These dogs specialize in locating biological traces that humans might easily overlook, and their results are taken seriously in any investigation. Yet despite returning to key locations, expanding certain perimeters, and revisiting earlier search paths with upgraded techniques, every sweep came back with the same result: no remains, no biological traces, no indicators pointing toward the worst-case scenario. This confirmation matters because it reinforces something that many people forget. There is still no forensic evidence proving the children were harmed. None. Search teams were intentionally deployed to test that possibility, to double-check areas where environmental factors or previous limitations might have caused something to be missed. But the environment yielded no new answers. Investigators marked this as significant, not because it solved the case, but because it removes assumptions. When an investigation has no physical evidence of harm, the entire direction of the search must stay broader, more flexible, and more open than people might expect. Officials emphasize that this absence of forensic confirmation is not a small detail. It shapes the entire investigative strategy. It prevents the case from being pushed prematurely toward a single conclusion and keeps investigators examining all plausible explanations. Instead of narrowing the focus to one dark scenario, the RCMP continues to treat multiple outcomes as viable, including the possibility that the children could still be found safe. In other words, until concrete evidence says otherwise, investigators are moving forward with the understanding that hope is not just emotional. It's supported by the facts currently available. Second, the RCMP confirmed they're still receiving and reviewing new tips, new video files, and newly submitted digital leads, more than 8,000 video files so far, with more still coming in. This volume isn't just a statistic. It shows that the public is still actively engaged and that investigators are nowhere near the point of slowing their review pipeline. Every file, whether it's a doorbell camera clip, vehicle footage, trail camera recording, or a digital timestamp from a nearby property, is cataloged, sorted, and analyzed. Analysts have to check for movement patterns, unusual activity, or anything that might align with the timeline from early May. Even files that seem irrelevant at first are often re-examined as new information shifts the context. The RCMP has stated this clearly and repeatedly. The investigation is active. They have not paused it, scaled it down, or moved it into a cold case status. Instead, they continue to emphasize that every credible lead is being followed, and every new submission is being reviewed with fresh eyes. This ongoing flow of information means investigators constantly return to earlier theories, revisit certain locations, and recheck digital correlations as new patterns emerge. Officials have also stressed that they are considering all possibilities. That phrase carries weight in investigative work. It means they are not limiting themselves to a single scenario or explanation. They are keeping the case open to multiple paths and outcomes, which requires continued manpower, resources, and time. If investigators had concluded the situation was final or irreversible, the scale of activity would have drastically decreased by now. But the opposite is happening. The workload remains large, and the review process continues to expand. And that detail is crucial. Investigators do not keep a case operating at this level unless they believe there is still something or someone to find. It signals that, based on what they've seen so far, there is still room for answers, progress, and potentially a breakthrough. So what's the next step? The RCMP has made it clear that their approach is evolving, not slowing down. Investigators are tightening the timeline, which means they're re-examining the events of early May with much greater precision. Every known movement, every location visited by Lily and Jack, and every potential witness account is being revisited in chronological order to create a clearer, more detailed picture. At the same time, digital traces are being reanalyzed with updated forensic tools and software, allowing investigators to detect patterns or anomalies that may have been missed in earlier reviews. This includes re-examining surveillance footage, phone data, social media activity, and location logs that could indicate routes or interactions previously overlooked. Additionally, search teams are returning to previously canvassed areas, but now with new tools and technology designed to pick up details missed in initial sweeps. That can involve more advanced scanning equipment, environmental sensors, or specialized detection methods that weren't deployed before. The RCMP emphasized that these repeated sweeps aren't redundant. They're targeted, intentional, and informed by the latest intelligence gathered from interviews, tips, and video analysis. In other words, the search isn't just continuing, it's sharpening. Investigators aren't covering more ground for the sake of it. They're strategically focusing their efforts where the evidence indicates the highest potential for progress. If even one new lead aligns with this updated approach and new evidence, it could finally place Lily and Jack back on a tangible path toward recovery. That alignment between digital analysis, physical search, and public tips is exactly what investigators are aiming for, and it underscores the methodical pace of the operation. When you put these two recent confirmations together, no remains have been found, and the investigation continues to expand. It sends a powerful message that the public may not have expected. The window of hope is still open. According to the latest RCMP statements, the work being done right now is not random or reactive. It's focused, intentional, and directed entirely toward leads that investigators believe still matter. This disciplined approach is a clear sign that authorities see potential paths to resolution, and every action being taken is meant to maximize the chance of finding the children safe and bringing answers to the case.